June 18, 1965. 32,000 feet above the South China Sea. The world below is a silent black ocean of jungle, broken only by faint silver ribbons of rivers catching moonlight. Up here, inside the belly of a Boeing B-52F Stratofortress, the air vibrates with a deep metallic hum. The crew sits strapped into their positions, oxygen masks on, eyes scanning glowing green instruments, while the giant bomber crawls through the night like a steel leviathan. Captain William Hawk Harleston, aircraft commander of Blackbird 27, wipes a thin line of sweat from beneath his flight helmet. Even at this altitude, the B-52 isn't a quiet aircraft. The 8 Pratt & Whitney engines don't roar, they growl, a constant low thunder that can be felt through the ribs more than heard in the ears. Tonight, they're not flying over Guam for a training run. Tonight, they are about to open a new chapter in the war. He glances to his right. His co-pilot, First Lieutenant Frank Delaney, is leaning forward in his seat, knuckles white on the yoke. Below them lies War Zone D, a Viet Cong stronghold so dense and untouched that American scouts refer to it as a green fortress. Intelligence reports claim that multiple VC regiments are camped beneath the jungle canopy, fully confident, fully concealed, and fully unaware of what's coming. In the back of the aircraft, Tech Sergeant Reeves monitors the bomb release system. 6 racks. 27 750 pounds M117 demolition bombs per aircraft. 3 B-52s per cell. 3 cells per strike package. 243 bombs, falling like iron rain. The intercom crackles. Blackbird 27, this is strike actual. Adjust heading 5 degrees starboard. You are 15 minutes from release. Harleston acknowledges. Roger, actual. Adjusting. The B-52 banks gently, barely noticeable. Yet each small movement feels monumental at this altitude. The crew can't see the jungle below, nor the Viet Cong units sleeping in their bunkers, nor the snaking tunnels carved into the earth. But they know what will happen when the bay doors open. Down in War Zone D, the Viet Cong call the B-52s sky dump trucks. They laugh at the lumbering giants. Too high, too slow, too far away to hit anything. They have no idea that in minutes, entire forests will vanish. Harleston steadies his breathing. This is the first major Operation Arc Light Strike in Vietnam. The one that will change the battlefield forever. Bomb bay doors opening, Reeves announces. Metal grinds. Cold night air rushes into the open belly of the bomber. The aircraft shudders, lighter now, hungrier. Below them, the jungle sleeps. Above, the sky begins to growl. Before the bombs fall, Harleston whispers into the intercom, half joke, half prayer. Gentlemen, history's watching. If you're watching this and love deep Vietnam War history breakdowns, hit that like button, it helps the channel grow. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. The bomb release light flashes. Inside Blackbird 27, Captain Harleston grips the armrest as the aircraft gives a sudden upward jolt, subtle but unmistakable, like a ship rising over a silent wave. Load is away. Tech Sergeant Reeves' voice is steady, but everyone feels the shift in the bomber's center of gravity as the payload drops into the void. Below them, 2 other B-52s, Blackbird 28 and 29, release their bomb loads in perfect staggered timing. Farther behind, another cell of 3 aircraft repeats the ritual. Then another. 9 bombers. Over 200 bombs. A 6-mile-long swath of destruction about to fall from the night sky. At 32,000 feet, the crew can't see the bombs, can't hear them, can't feel the shockwaves. But the jungle below will. On the ground, War Zone D. 3rd Battalion, 271st Regiment, Viet Cong Army. A camp deep beneath triple-layer canopy. A young VC runner named Pham Tuan lounges in a hammock, listening to distant thunder. Except tonight, the thunder sounds wrong. Shorter. Sharper. Like the sky is gritting its teeth. A wiry squad leader, Bao Kiet, looks up from the cooking pot. Probably the Americans dropping trash again, he mutters. The men snicker. Sky dump trucks. Lumbering American giants that always miss. But then the ground trembles. Once. A soft shiver. Bow freezes. That wasn't thunder. Another tremor. He grips a tree trunk. The leaves above him begin to whisper violently, yet there is no wind. Then the world explodes. A wall of earth, fire, and pressure erupts a kilometer away, instantly flattening 100 yards of jungle. A second shock wave hits closer. Then a third. Then 11 more in rapid succession. The earth isn't just shaking, it's heaving, like something monstrous is trying to claw its way out from beneath. Pham Tuan is thrown from his hammock as a rolling blast tears through the trees, snapping trunks like matchsticks. The air turns white and hot. Soil, roots, stones, and splinters rain down from above like a reversed landslide. No scream escapes him. The pressure crushes the air out of his lungs before he can inhale. A bunker 50 meters away collapses inward, burying its occupants under tons of earth. Another simply disappears, lifted off the ground as if plucked by a giant hand. And still the bombs fall, each one carving a crater 30 feet deep, vaporizing everything at its center. Trees become dust. Men become shadows. Tunnels implode like paper tubes. A 6-mile chain of explosions merges into one continuous roar, a sound so massive it stops being a sound and becomes something else, a physical force that reaches into the bones. Back aboard Blackbird 27, Captain Harleston listens to the distant rumble through the fuselage. Even from 30,000 feet, he can feel the vibrations rolling up through the airframe. He glances at his crew. No one speaks. They all know what just happened. Blackbird 27, the radio crackles. You are clear to return to Anderson. Good work tonight. Harleston breathes out slowly, turning for home. As the Stratofortress banks away from the inferno below, the captain allows himself one quiet thought. They'll never mock the sky dump trucks again. If you're enjoying this deep dive narrative, hit subscribe. More Vietnam War history stories are on the way, and your support keeps them coming. And drop a comment telling me what era of the war you want covered next. Dawn, June 19, 1965. War Zone D. The first rays of sunlight creep over the horizon, revealing a landscape that no longer resembles a jungle. What had been a towering, triple-layer canopy just hours earlier is now a desolate moonscape, a stretch of earth pocked with hundreds of steaming craters. The smell hits first. Burned soil. Splintered vegetation. Something metallic. Something human. Where the 271st Regiment once operated in confidence, silence now rules. Even the insects, the ever-present soundtrack of Vietnam, are gone. Colonel Nguyen Ton Duong, commander of the regiment, limps across the ruined ground with 2 surviving officers. Their uniforms are caked with dust. One man's left ear bleeds from the pressure blasts. None speak. Words feel useless here. Look at this, whispers Captain Hui, pointing to a crater the size of a small house. The bottom still smokes. A tree trunk has been driven vertically into the crater floor like a javelin. No living thing could have survived at its center. Duong scans the horizon. Everything is flattened. Not a single bunker remains intact. Tunnels collapsed for hundreds of meters in every direction. Entire companies, men he knew personally, are simply gone. No bodies. No wounded. Just absence. Report. Duong asks quietly. Captain Hui swallows hard. We estimate 400 missing. He doesn't say dead. But all 3 know the truth. The Viet Cong leadership had believed the Americans were too clumsy, too predictable, too reliant on noisy machines that could never hit what hid beneath the canopy. Now, standing inside a landscape scraped raw by bombs dropped from 6 miles up, Colonel Duong realizes the new equation. The Americans have found a way to kill without seeing. And no tunnel, no bunker, no forest density can shield them from it. A young sapper approaches, visibly shaken. "Comrade Colonel." The men ask, "What weapon did the Americans use?" Duong looks at the horizon of craters and answers with a voice that feels older than he is. "They used the sky itself." Elsewhere, a VC survivor emerges. Pham Tuan, the runner who survived only by being thrown into a flooded trench, claws his way out of the mud. He is drenched, trembling, ears ringing so loudly he can hear nothing else. He stands in a world he doesn't recognize. The jungle that raised him, sheltered him, fed him, erased in seconds. A tree limb falls beside him, snapping into the mud. Then he realizes it isn't a limb. It's part of a man. Pham drops to his knees, overcome. His hands dig into the loamy soil, shaking violently. No tears come. He is too shocked for grief. He whispers the only words he can form. "Sky dump trucks. The legends were wrong." Intelligence recon, the American perspective. Hours later, U.S. Army forward air controllers fly low over the strike zone in O-1 Bird Dogs. The pilots stare in disbelief at the devastation. "Jesus, it looks like the moon," one lieutenant murmurs into his mic. Photos are taken. Coordinates logged. Reports transmitted back to Saigon and Washington. The assessment is simple. Entire VC regiments neutralized. ArcLight is a success. In the coming weeks, new operations will follow. More B-52s. More crater fields. More landscapes erased. The war has changed. And it changed overnight. If you're still with us, smash that like button. It tells YouTube to push this story to more Vietnam history fans. And let me know in the comments what country you're watching from. We've got viewers worldwide. July 1965, Tay Ninh Province, VC Central Command meeting. A dimly lit underground chamber hums with tension. Candles flicker against dirt walls reinforced with bamboo ribs. Senior Viet Cong officers sit around a crude wooden table, bruised, bandaged, exhausted. Every man present has seen the crater fields of War Zone D with his own eyes. Colonel Duong stands at the head of the table, face gaunt from lack of sleep. Pinned to the wall behind him is a hand-drawn map of the ArcLight strike zone. It is covered in X's, each one marking a vanished platoon, a collapsed tunnel, a company erased. The room is silent as Duong speaks. The Americans have discovered a method of attack we cannot predict. They strike from so high that our sentries cannot see or hear them. By the time the bombs fall, it is too late. Captain Hui gestures at the map. "We lost 400 in minutes. Perhaps more. No battle. No exchange of fire. Just destruction." Another officer mutters, "How do we fight an enemy who kills us without entering the battlefield?" Duong exhales slowly. "We change." The new VC doctrine begins. Within days, new construction orders ripple through the jungles of South Vietnam. Bunkers must be deeper, at least 15 feet under solid clay. Roofs reinforced with multiple layers of timber, earth, and bamboo. Tunnels widened and buttressed to withstand concussions. Units never sleep in the same place twice. Large gatherings are banned. Movement must be constant, quiet, hidden, fluid. These changes will later evolve into the infamous spider hole systems and multi-level tunnel complexes that American infantry dread. But for now, the VC dig with a desperation born of terror. Meanwhile, Guam, Anderson Air Force Base. Captain Harleston steps off the crew ladder of Blackbird 27, greeted by the thick humidity of the Pacific and the bustle of ground crews preparing the next mission. The B-52's fuselage still radiates heat from its long flight, smelling faintly of hot metal and hydraulic fluid. His flight suit is soaked with sweat. His head throbs from the pressure changes. But he knows the strike succeeded. Inside the ready room, intelligence officers brief the crews. "Gentlemen, reconnaissance confirms your strike devastated multiple enemy formations. The jungle canopy concealed them, but when the bombs hit, The officer taps a slide showing a grid of smoking craters. Visibility wasn't required. A murmur passes through the room. For decades, bomber crews were trained to hit cities, airfields, factories, visible targets. But here, in Vietnam, they were learning something new. They could reshape a battlefield they never saw. The myth of the invincible jungle was broken. Word spreads across Vietnam. In hamlets and villages, farmers whisper about a new American weapon that burns the world without flame. VC recruits hear rumors of an attack so powerful that trees turn to dust. NVA officers arriving from the north study reconnaissance sketches in disbelief. Arc light becomes legend, feared, debated, and misunderstood. Some call it the hammer of the sky. Others call it the bombs that erase men. But among the Viet Cong who survived it, a quieter phrase takes root, spoken only at night. When the earth roars, run. A new phase of the war begins. Arc light strikes become routine. VC units adapt, dispersing, digging deeper, moving faster. The Americans respond with more sorties, more precision, more coordinated assaults. The war enters a dance of devastation and adaptation, each side learning, evolving, surviving. And high above it all, the B-52 roars on, indifferent, immense, timeless. Late 1966, near the Cambodian border, VC Rear Area Hospital. A canvas tent trembles in the monsoon wind. Inside, lantern light flickers across rows of wounded fighters lying on bamboo stretchers. Some are missing limbs from booby traps. Others cough from malaria. But several men bear wounds unlike anything the medics were trained for. Concussion lungs. Burst eardrums. Internal bleeding with no shrapnel wounds. They are the ghosts of arc light, men who survived the unsurvivable. In a corner cot lies Pham Tuan, the runner who crawled out of the mud after War Zone D vanished. His ears still ring. He speaks in a near whisper. A medic kneels beside him. "You were in the bombing?" Tuan nods slowly. "What did it feel like?" He stares at the hospital ceiling, watching shadows ripple against canvas. It felt like the world took a breath, then exhaled fire. He pauses. You don't hear the bombs. They arrive before their sound. You only feel the air leave your body, and hope it returns. His voice breaks. I ran. I didn't even know where. When I looked back, my regiment didn't exist. Other wounded fighters listen in silence, each man knowing the jungle offers no safety from the sky. U.S. Marines. Operation Hastings, 1966. 500 miles away, a Marine battalion marches through thick elephant grass when a distant rumble rolls across the mountains. Lance Corporal Jared Collins looks up instinctively. We got a storm coming? The platoon sergeant smiles thinly. That ain't weather, son. Seconds later, the ground beneath their boots trembles. A low-frequency wave, not sound, not wind, just force. B-52s, the sergeant says. Arc light. Someone up ahead's having a real bad morning. Collins swallows. The Marines have seen bombed tree lines, crater chains, places where the jungle looked scooped out of the earth. But every time they feel the shock wave, it hits the same way. A reminder that they are tiny things in a massive war. The platoon halts on a ridge, watching as a faint dust cloud rises miles away. No flame. No smoke columns. Just a long, silent wound opening across the land. Hard to believe people survive that, Collins mutters. Most don't, the sergeant replies. Strategists in Saigon, the debate begins. Inside MACV headquarters, American planners gather around a table stacked with reconnaissance photos. Some officers praise arc light as a war-winning tool. Others warn that the Viet Cong are adapting faster than anticipated. General Westmoreland folds his arms. Arc light softens them, but it won't win the war alone. The enemy hides deeper every month. They disperse. They move. They burrow. An intelligence major adds. They know the bombers can erase them, but fear doesn't stop them. It only changes them. The room falls silent. For all its power, arc light shapes the ground without shaping the outcome, a revelation slowly taking hold. Colonel Duong's new order. Back in the war-torn jungle, Colonel Duong stands atop a newly reinforced bunker, his men digging tirelessly around him. He addresses a squad of young recruits, some still shaking from their first B-52 near miss. "Listen to me," he says, voice sharp and deliberate. "You cannot outrun the bombs. You cannot shoot down the bombers. But you can survive them." He points to the network of deep trenches and covered foxholes. "This is your shield. The Americans believe these strikes break our spirit. But we adapt. As long as we adapt, we live." His men nod, determination replacing fear. "But remember this," Duong adds quietly. "The sky is now part of the battlefield. Respect it. Fear it if you must. But never surrender to it." The legacy begins to form. By 1967, arc light zones scar the countryside. Crater maps fill briefing rooms on both sides. Entire valleys are reshaped. Some areas remain impassable decades after the war. To American crews on Guam, they are coordinates. To Vietnamese villagers, they are wounds in the earth. To the Viet Cong, they are reminders that the sky can betray them at any moment. And to survivors like Tuan, they are nightmares reshaped into landscape. But the war pushes on. And the B-52s keep flying. If you're still here, you're part of a special group who loves long-form Vietnam War storytelling. Hit subscribe and comment where in the world you're watching. It helps the channel bring more history lovers together. January 30th, 1968, near Khe San Combat Base, Quang Tri Province. A cold mist clings to the mountains. Marines huddle behind sandbags, staring into a wall of fog that has turned the world into a gray void. Somewhere out there, hidden in ravines, tree lines, and trench networks, tens of thousands of North Vietnamese army troops prepare for the opening blows of the Tet Offensive. Inside a cramped bunker, Sergeant Jared Collins, the same young Marine who once watched arc light from miles away, loads another belt into his M60 machine gun. His hands tremble, but not from fear. From anticipation. Outside, artillery thumps in the distance. Not American. NVA guns. Big ones. The ground shakes with the opening barrage. Khe San is getting hit first. Marines dive for cover as the NVA bombardment slams into the perimeter. Dust rains from the ceiling. A wooden support beam cracks. Someone shouts, "Incoming! Incoming!" Then, the radio crackles through static. "Incoming arc light. Danger close." Collins freezes. "Danger close? How close?" The platoon commander yells, "Everyone down! Dig in deep!" They press their faces to the floor as the sky begins to rumble, faint at first, like distant thunder rolling across the mountains. But Collins recognizes it instantly. He's heard this before. He whispers, "B-52s, they're coming right over us." Above the clouds, 30,000 feet. 3 B-52ds of Cell Reaper 1 glide through a moonless sky. Their wings stretch like the span of an albatross. Their engines leave faint halos of vapor in the freezing air. Colonel Raymond Nichols, aircraft commander, stares at the radar screen. The ground controller's voice comes through. "Reaper 1, this is Hillside. Confirm cleared hot. You are dropping on NVA trench systems east of Khe San. Friendlies extremely close. Repeat, extremely close." Nichols nods. He's flown 67 arc light sorties, but never this close to friendlies. "Crew," he says into the intercom, "this is going to be tight. Stay sharp." The bomb bay doors open. Cold air spills in. The stratofortress shudders like a giant inhaling. Release in 5, 4, 3. Back on the ground, Ki-san. The Marines hear nothing for a moment. Just silence. Then the first shockwave hits. Not a boom. Not a blast. A punch. The earth beneath them bucks like a living thing. Air whips through the bunker as pressure shifts violently. Ears pop, lungs crush inward. Outside, the sky flashes white through the fog as a line of explosions rips across the ridge. A rolling wall of fire, soil, tree trunks, and shattered rock climbs hundreds of feet upward. It doesn't sound like a bomb. It sounds like the planet cracking open. Collins grabs the bunker floor as the second wave hits. Closer, harder. The entire hillside seems to lift, then settle. Through the chaos, he hears the platoon commander yelling, "Hold on. They're right on top of them." In the NVA trenches, North Vietnamese soldiers are thrown into the air like leaves in a storm. The trenches collapse. Earth liquefies into mud and smoke. Craters fuse into each other, erasing terrain landmarks in seconds. An NVA platoon leader named Bowie Van de C tries to shout orders, but the blast steals the air from his throat. His vision whites out. He feels nothing except pressure, endless, crushing pressure. When he opens his eyes, the trench is gone. Half his men are simply missing. The rest stagger in circles, bleeding from ears and eyes, stunned into silence. He looks toward Ki-san. The Americans are still there. But his regiment? It's been folded into the earth. The Marines emerge. When the final explosion dies, the fog parts just enough for Collins to see the valley floor. Nothing moves. Nothing stands. Everything has been flattened into a smoking wound in the earth. The platoon sergeant exhales slowly. Sweet Mother of God. Collins swallows, unable to speak. He has seen arc light from afar. He has felt it from miles away. But never this close. Never like this. One thought forms in his mind. If hell had a sound, this would be it. The legacy seals itself. Over the next weeks, B-52s pound NVA positions around Ki-san relentlessly. Some Marines begin marking their calendars with arc light times, jokingly calling them scheduled earthquakes. Some pray when they hear the distant rumble. Some just stare at the horizon, knowing the sky has once again become a weapon. The Viet Cong and NVA adapt. Deeper tunnels, wider dispersal, tighter secrecy, but the psychological impact never fades. Arc light is no longer just a bombardment. It is a presence. A promise. A warning written across the jungle canopy. The sky remembers where you hide. If you're still watching, you're part of a rare group who loves long-form, immersive Vietnam War storytelling. Hit like and subscribe. It tells YouTube you want more. And drop a comment with the country you're watching from. We read every one. 1972. Hanoi Military Archives, North Vietnam. A dusty ceiling fan turns slowly above a dim room stacked wall-to-wall with folders, maps, and casualty logs. Senior Colonel Nguyen Ton Duong, older now, one arm stiff from an old concussion injury, sits before a table covered in reports from across 7 years of war. He turns the pages silently. Crater maps. Loss charts. Unit strength tables. Entire battalions marked simply, erased, arc light. Duong removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. Even after all the digging, all the reinforcement, all the dispersal tactics, the B-52s had always found ways to carve new scars into the earth. A young officer enters, salutes, and sets down a final document. "Comrade Colonel," he says softly, "this is the last of the arc light casualty listings." Duong nods. He does not open it. He doesn't need to. He has walked through enough crater fields to know what the numbers will show. Guam, Anderson Air Force Base. Final sorties. Across the ocean, the war winds toward its close. The B-52s no longer launch dozens of sorties a week, but when they do, the ritual is unchanged. Engines roar. Crews strap in. Runways tremble. Inside the cockpit of Blackbird 27, now flown by a new generation of pilots, Major Frank Delaney, once the nervous co-pilot at the start of all this, settles into the left seat. Lines of fatigue mark his face, and his hair has begun to gray. He looks out at the dark Pacific horizon as the aircraft taxis. "You ever think about what these things do on the ground?" his new co-pilot asks. Delaney pauses, then answers quietly, "Every time." The older crew chiefs say the B-52 doesn't fly, it endures. Like the war itself. The places the jungle never grew back. 2023, Ben Phuc Province, Vietnam. A group of schoolchildren walks through a forest reserve under the guidance of a local ranger. Birds sing overhead. Rays of sun filter through new canopy. But suddenly, the forest ends. In front of them yawns a vast, unnatural depression, a chain of overlapping craters reclaimed by moss and scrub brush. The soil is still uneven after almost 60 years. The ranger stops. "This," he says, "is an arc light zone." The children fall silent. Some step forward, staring down into the old wounds of the land. "This is where the earth thundered," he continues. "Where the jungle was lifted into the sky. You can still feel how the land remembers." He kneels and presses a hand to the soil. War ends. But the ground carries its memory. Survivors on both sides carry their own. Near the Cambodian border, an elderly man tends a small shrine of incense and wooden tablets. It is Pham Tuan, the runner who survived the firestorm of War Zone D. He lights a stick of incense and bows. The wind rustles the leaves above him, leaves of a second-generation jungle regrown over lost battalions. "I lived because I fell into the mud," he whispers. "They did not." He looks upward, toward the sky. "I do not hate the Americans. The sky killed us, not the men." His voice softens. "And the sky forgets. But the people remember." Half a world away, retired Colonel Frank Delaney gives a lecture at a military museum. Behind him hangs a massive photograph, a line of B-52ds releasing their payload in perfect symmetry. A young visitor raises a hand. "Sir, did you ever think the bombs were too powerful?" Delaney folds his hands, thinking. "We felt the earth shake from 30,000 feet, he says. "And we knew, down there, someone felt it 10 times worse." He pauses. "War is not clean. It's not fair. It's not equal. We were told arc light saved Marines, broke sieges, shattered ambushes. And it did. But power like that, it weighs on you." He looks up at the photo of the falling bombs, suspended in time. "You don't forget something that big. Not ever." The final truth of Operation Arclight. In the end, Operation Arclight did not win the war. But it changed it. It reshaped jungles, rewrote tactics, and carved memories into the land itself. Entire regiments vanished without a shot fired. The Viet Cong went from mocking the slow American giants to fearing the soundless storms they carried. And every soldier, American, VC, or NVA, who lived beneath those skies carried the same understanding. The jungle could hide you from a rifle. It could hide you from a helicopter. It could hide you from an entire battalion. But nothing, not roots, not tunnels, not darkness, could hide you from a B-52. When the sky roared, the earth obeyed. And men disappeared. Thank you for watching this long-form Vietnam War story. If you want more deep, cinematic war narratives, hit like and subscribe. It tells YouTube to keep recommending content like this. And comment below with what battle or operation you want covered next.